So I'm here reading Creation Conversations by comicbook.com, and I'm going to answer some of the questions here on the screen here while I do this video, and it's going to be pretty interesting. You guys have taken to Mr. Liefeld as a creator, but he also likes to omit his partner in crime there, Mr. Fabian, often, who basically is like, who's that guy, you know? But Fabian had all my material and was controlling Rob. It wasn't Rob controlling him, and that's what I want to get to. I'm going to read questions from the screen here, and I'm going to tell you, the viewer, in my words, and you go from there. I don't beat around the bush when he asks. If you read his interviews about Deadpool, he often brings up Cable, which I'm pretty sure he didn't create Cable either, because the artist I spoke to at the time when I came up with Deadpool was talking about Cable then coming up pre-Liefeld employment at Marvel, and that's the truth. Now, some people are out there saying, well, you're lying, but we're going to get to that. I have another video that's going to blow your minds. And for you guys that don't know, I'm going to give you your dose of truth today. They asked him the question, when you created Deadpool, what was your goal for the character? The reality is I wanted him to be even more popular than Spider-Man. And that was my goal for the character. Pure and simple. I knew that if I could put a guy out there with two swords that ran around like a lunch meat slicing machine, I knew that he was serious, you know. Created him in the way there where he wasn't mentally straight and he had problems, and the problems were apparent to everyone. Okay, he wasn't part of a Weapon X program per se. Okay, the idea behind Deadpool himself was they had taken a sample of Wolverine and they injected a sample of him as a serum, as a super soldier serum, and it put an already latent mutant power into overdrive. That is Deadpool. He is basically an altered mutant, if that makes sense. Okay? He was also an abused child, so when he was abused a little bit, he wasn't really noticed. Okay, he healed up rather quickly, but not on the level that he currently has today. Going back, it says, in your mind, what makes Deadpool Deadpool? In my mind, it's adversity. The idea of Deadpool being Deadpool and his adversity is that all the bad that happens to him, he can still become something. He can be a hero, is what the basis of that is. And that's in my mind what he can be. No matter how bad your life is, you can always turn it around. You can come back to the good side of things. And that was what my idea of him being that way was, that no matter how bad your abuse was, no matter how bad your military career was, and that story has never been told, but no matter how bad it was, you can still do good, you know. And that comes from a story that Mr. Egan told me about World War II. They did a lot of bad things, but we still won, you know. They asked him about the character being adapted to video games, cartoons, and more. What do you think? Look, I love them all. Who wouldn't love them all? You know? That was the idea for me as a kid, was to give those people that worked for that company jobs. I succeeded in doing that. On that note, what characteristics of the character do you think resonates with the audiences? And this is all off of comicbook.com. It says, I really believe the most important aspect of him is his look, is what he says here. He's a powerful visual. You have no idea. Look at the costume. Look at the costume. Ryan Reynolds in a costume. I think his favorite answer is Ryan Reynolds. You know, who won Family Feud last night? Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds. The footage is amazing. He beats all around the bush. You know, what do I think resonates with audiences? Well, I haven't read a book yet. I've looked at pictures though. What do I think resonates with audiences? The fact that he's in touch with the audience, that he corresponds with the audience, and everyone else on the other side of the theater there inside the comic book says, he's nuts. He's talking to somebody. Who's he talking to? You know, that's what the idea of that. What resonates with the audience is the fact that you have an inanimate character and he's interacting with the audience that he's aware of. That was the idea of that. Exactly. Not Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is Mr. Liefeld's answer to, hey, Van Wilder could be Deadpool. Let's do that. When there's a lot of other, no offense, Ryan Reynolds, when there's a lot of people that, you know. Here we go here. Here's another one. From a purely design standpoint, what do you think makes the costume you created so iconic? Black and red is a great combination. Plus the mask is a winner. Look, guys. It took 4 hours to design Deadpool. He even had rainbows on his costume at one point. He even had a piece where his hair was exposed out the top, you know. And I didn't want to have him with a piece like that. And I didn't want him to be good looking. And I didn't want him to be married. Black and red wasn't my first color. I actually had blue and yellow, believe it or not. Black and red was something that I had on my sneakers, and it wasn't my favorite pair of sneakers, and guess what? I kind of added it, you know. Black and red was just one of those things, you know. They kind of complemented one another. The design is actually a broken zipper. Playing with a fleece that I had a plastic zipper, and the zipper thing cracked and it broke and it was hanging down. And I asked my mother, I said, can you fix this thing? And she says, no, it's broke. You're going to have to go get another one. And I never found the same fleece coat again. And I was kind of upset by it. And I started drawing the design on the outline of the body, and I said, this is really cool. I says, he's a broken zipper. Deadpool's a this, he ain't a this. You know? Is Wade's sense of humor something you modeled off of your own? Let me tell you something. Liefeld had nothing to do with Wade's sense of humor. Nietzsche had nothing to do with his sense of humor. It was all written down for them. Okay? Deadpool's sense of humor comes from my Uncle Bobby. And my Uncle Bobby could shoot a gun and make it funny. True story. Guys were playing with lighters, going back and forth in the darkness at a I'll say a camp, a bivouac that my uncle had. And while the lighters were going back, my uncle was drunk, and he says, look, and he kind of says, you guys need to stop doing that. And they were giggling, Bob, you know, and they're going back and forth, back and forth. My uncle pulled out a gun and went, boom, shot him between the flames, and then the lighters dropped real fast. And he says, and then, you know, he says, geez, Bob, we didn't know you were serious. He says, well, I'm serious now. And that was all that had to be said, you know. That is a true story. Okay. You've mentioned Wade's fighting ability up a few times now. He comes to the party with guns, katanas, and excels at hand-to-hand combat. Does he prefer one over the other? When you created him, where did you see him learning all of these skills? He writes down Soldier of Fortune. Robert K. Brown, is the editor-in-chief of Soldier of Fortune. His trademark is get it straight from the Merc with the mouth. That's Robert Brown's trademark. It's funny that you should say that in an interview, Rob Liefeld. What a douchebag. That was all put in there by me. I didn't create it. I didn't come up with it. And as a matter of fact, hold on one second. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get any better than that. There you go, Rob. There's your soldier of fortune, brother. Huh? You're a douchebag. And Fabian, I got a video of you too. I'm going to share that with everybody. You didn't come up with it. You tell everybody you came up with it. It was this man's trademark. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. And it's not anywhere on any computer. You have to go back and look it up in print. Go find it. I only took part of it and I put it in there in the event my material was stolen from Marvel. Yous didn't disappoint. You go back and you check their lawyer. Their lawyer bounced around 2014, 2015 trying to apply it as a trademark so they could put it on mugs and glasses and t-shirts and everything. Yous are disgraceful. Where did Deadpool learn his fighting skills? Deadpool got his skills from a friend of mine who was an Air Force brat. And what she did was she traveled from military base to military base like Wade's dad in the story. And he got training from various martial arts instructors within the bases of the United States that his dad traveled to during wartime. That's where he got his training from. Later on, he joins the military and he would have gotten further training. So on and so forth, etc., etc. That's where your training comes from. But to sit there and he sits there and he goes, he says Soldier of Fortune is where he got his training from. And then he goes, he submits the Weapon X program and is transformed and messed up horribly in the process. He's the Danny DeVito to Arnold Schwarzenegger's Wolverine. One is perfect and one is junk. Now, let me address that, okay? Let's go to the Nazi version of this. If you have a guy that doesn't age, he doesn't hurt, he doesn't get killed, he is basically a soldier previously, don't you think you're going to experiment on him? Even in our society today, there would be some pharmaceutical company farming his DNA. There ain't no doubt in my mind it was my idea back then, it's my idea today, and I'm saying it on camera. That's what I'm saying. Not a Twins reference that this idiot comes up with. He is a real idiot buffoon. He goes as far to say Soldier of Fortune, and guess what? You're right about that, Rob. You're right about that. You got Rob and Lie in your name. You're right about that, brother. What an asshole. Take it a step further. If you're going to farm someone's DNA, you got to experiment on people. And in my original writing, which I did not send to Marvel, here's a guy that's laying there dying of brain cancer. And if you look at the 2015 interview of Fabian in the Comic-Con, he's laughing about, oh yeah, this guy's got cancer and blah, 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 blah. It was all based on a true story. And what it is my dad told me in the military you don't volunteer. Wade had to volunteer because guess what? He had nowhere else to go but to die. That was his story. That's what makes him that guy. He has nothing left to lose and he goes forward and he does it. And during the process, a guy comes out built like Steve Rogers. The formula works and he goes like this. Derp. Formula didn't work. And Wade's laying there in bed and he starts to laugh. This is the end. It is the hero facing mortality. His own fear of death. My own fear of death as a 14-year-old kid going on 15. That was my fear of death. So that's your answer to that. For you comic book guys out there that catch this video, it doesn't get any more real than this. And I don't think I've missed a beat on anything. And that's where the story comes in. They come to the basis that that it kicks his cancer into overdrive too. It doesn't cure his cancer. It puts his cancer in overdrive. He still has it, and the cancer makes him immune to psychic attacks. I wanted him immune to psychic attacks based on Professor X solely. I didn't want him to be manipulated. I wanted him to be a killer, but a good killer, our killer, you know. But they got that all wrong too, you know. Same way where they go, well, there's bad people. There's bad people in Russia too. There's bad people in China. There's bad people in the Middle East. But we got to be a little bit better than they are if we're going to survive. And that's what they missed. They missed it with X-Force. I created X-Force. I'm going to say I created X-Force. Marvel, you don't own X-Force. You don't own Deadpool. You don't own Domino. And you don't own John Wraith. Fox, you don't own them either. And I suggest you guys get your ducks in order. My ducks are in order for after this debut, because I got news for you. I'm going after all of yous. What's your favorite Deadpool story? Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back for a second. It says there are guns, katanas, and all that. The katanas came from Musashi. And my initial look at a character was Deathstroke the Terminator. And not to say that he was necessarily an inspiration, but he was a motivation. I looked down at him on a magazine shelf, and there was a Teen Titans. And when I saw him, he had a huge broadsword. And I said, who's going to run around with that? Nobody runs around with katanas. I'm going to give the guy 2 katanas like Musashi. I'm going to base him off of that. And that's exactly how he came about. But he doesn't go into that. He also says in another interview with another company that interviewed him, if he had it all over to do again, he would have gave him 1 sword. That tells me that you don't have it up here. Because me, as a martial artist, I would like to have a weapon in both hands. And that's just me. Where would I see Deadpool today? I would see Deadpool with a garrote or a vajra. You should look those weapons up. When you train long enough, you become something else. They haven't done that with him. And that's their failing, not mine. So, that's all I'm going to say about this video in particular. I want to thank you for watching. Catch up with me later, because I am going to have a new video before the... more videos actually coming, but before the release of this movie coming out, I'm going to have more stuff. Marvel, you got until the debut of the movie to get back to me and set up a deal. Other than that, I'm going to go after yous, Liefeld, Fox. I'm going after all of yous. So, ciao for now, ladies and gentlemen.